Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Efrem Graham. Ahead today, breaking overnight, more violence in Israel. The Israeli army striking Hamas military post in Gaza after Palestinians launched rockets and after clashes on the Temple Mount. We're going to bring you the story from Jerusalem. Plus, former President Donald Trump responding to the charges against him from the Manhattan District Attorney after he entered a not guilty plea. We're going to analyze the case with CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody. Victories for Democrats in key races in Chicago and Wisconsin. We're going to take a look, and our up-close look at the new biblical film, His Only Son, which deals with one of the most famous and important stories of the Bible. And then what I most look forward to sharing, a very special story about a very special woman and a very special faith she has in Jesus Christ.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
Let's begin this half hour in the Middle East, where Israeli planes struck targets in the Gaza Strip overnight after Hamas fired at least 16 rockets into Israel. But as Chris Mitchell reports, the fighting began on the Temple Mount in the heart of Jerusalem.
Israel's Iron Dome anti-missile system knocked down the rockets, while Israel struck at Hamas's rocket manufacturing sites inside Gaza. Hamas fired the rockets after Palestinians rioted on the Temple Mount and some streets outside the old city of Jerusalem. Associated Press reported that according to Palestinian media, Israeli police raided the Al-Aqsa mosque on the Temple Mount. But former IDF spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus explained what happened last night and who's behind the violence.
What actually happened is that there's been a call for 2-3 days by different external factors, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and Iran, calling on Muslims to go into the Temple Mount and to stay overnight at the Al-Aqsa and to be prepared to what they call defend it against settlement. This is nonsense. There's no evil plan and there's nothing happening. And what Israeli police are doing is that they're allowing worship to go on the Temple Mount. What's happening is that there was a few hours of negotiations where the Israeli police said, listen, what you're doing is illegal and you need to vacate the mosque so that the morning prayers can start. But they refused. And as the Israeli police went in, they started to fire firecrackers, which can be very, very dangerous, throw stones.
Conricus says there are several actors behind the scenes and laments how the rioting is often portrayed.
Unfortunately, what we see is that Iran, the Islamic Jihad, Hamas, and other extremist actors in the Middle East are using the holy month of Ramadan in order to elevate tensions and bring about violence. And what I am very disappointed at seeing is how these activities are reflected in mainstream American media, where this bluff isn't called and where the situation isn't described for what it is.
It's also the Muslim fasting month of Ramadan, when often Muslims are encouraged to commit violence, but most just don't want to enjoy their holiday. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
I want to turn now to the arrest and arraignment of former President Donald Trump. As expected, he was charged with 34 counts of falsifying business records. It happened in a New York courtroom on Tuesday. He entered a not guilty plea and spoke to the American people last night from his home in Palm Beach, Florida. CBN's Brody has that story.
Tuesday's arraignment was the first step in what's expected to be a lengthy legal battle, with more than 30 felony criminal charges against the former president who's seeking another term. President Trump arrived at the sealed-off courthouse in a Secret Service motorcade where he was taken into custody, processed, and then taken upstairs to face the judge.
America first! America first!
As the arraignment got underway, demonstrators on both sides gathered at a nearby park, including Trump supporter House Republican leader Marjorie Taylor Greene. Inside the courtroom, with no TV cameras allowed, this photograph and a courtroom sketch show the proceedings. The president pled not guilty to all charges.
These are felony crimes in New York State, no matter who you are.
Trump is charged with 34 felony counts of falsifying business records, with a maximum sentence of 136 years in prison. The Manhattan District Attorney alleges he conducted an illegal catch-and-kill scheme, violating New York's election law, to buy and suppress negative information to help him win the presidential election. He also claims Trump made additional false statements to tax authorities.
As part of this scheme, Donald Trump and others made 3 payments to people who claim to have negative information about Mr. Trump.
Questionable payments include a $130,000 payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels over an alleged affair, $30,000 paid to a former doorman at Trump Tower, and $150,000 to another woman who also claimed a sexual relationship with Trump.
The fact is, this is an incredibly weak indictment.
Former Oklahoma Attorney General John O'Connor told CBN's Faith Nation the prosecution's charges fall short.
This indictment, it seems to have some sense of specificity with these 33 payments, these financial records that were not logged correctly, but it doesn't tell what the other crime is that is supposed to be hushed up. That's the key to the entire indictment, and yet the prosecutor doesn't say what crime it is that's being covered up.
Trump immediately flew back to Mar-a-Lago for a rally with his supporters Wednesday night.
The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it.
Trump's next hearing is scheduled for December, roughly 2 months before the start of the 2024 primaries. Meanwhile, he's facing other investigations and potential charges, including for election interference in Georgia. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Chief political analyst David Brody joins us now. So, David, the indictment has been released. How does the case look?
Well, I mean, flimsy at best. Efrem, flimsy at best. There's no doubt about it. And there's so much to go through here, Efrem. Where do we even begin? Look, the bottom line is all of the falsifying of business records, these 34 counts. By the way, it's not 34 business records necessarily. It's just pretty much 1 or 2, and they're trumping it up, so to speak, to 34. But look, the problem is it's a misdemeanor under New York state law. The question, as pointed out in that piece, where is the crime exactly? Where is the felony part of this? Well, the felony, according to Alvin Bragg, eventually will be that indeed somehow, some way, Donald Trump was trying to, in essence, give his campaign an illegal campaign contribution at the federal level. That's how it gets to a felony. But that wasn't laid out at all. And plus, you'd have to prove intent. So, look, anytime that Mitt Romney and John Bolton and George Will and Ruth Marcus, from the Washington Post, a liberal columnist there, anytime they are defending Donald Trump on this, saying this is all trumped up and ridiculous, Donald Trump's in a pretty good position here.
Do you think that he can get a fair trial in Manhattan?
Not going to happen. And that'll be one of those pre-trial motions that the defense will, in essence, ask for. They'll say, look, I mean, come on, give me a break. Donald Trump getting a fair trial in Manhattan? I mean, that's tough sledding. They'll want to see if they can move it to potentially Staten Island rather than Manhattan. Staten Island more conservative, way more conservative than Manhattan. So I think that's what's going to end up happening here.
What's your assessment? Do you consider this a sad day for America?
Oh, yeah, Efrem, it's really sad. I mean, look, this has been political from the very beginning. I mean, if we can just have a quick truth serum injection, and put a little truth serum into the arm and say, if this was not Donald Trump, would this be felony charges? Would this be potentially 136 years in jail for something like this? No, this is falsifying business records, misdemeanor. Once again, Trump basically saying that wasn't true to begin with. But the point is that this is misdemeanor stuff. And you're going to charge a former president with this. So, yeah, it's a very sad day. This is not a story about Donald Trump. It's a story about the weaponization of the justice system. And that's the concern going forward as it relates to what DAs could do here in the future.
Do you think we could see more charges against political officials, even the current president, President Biden?
Well, yeah, I think that's the concern. Look, George Soros spent $40 million backing certain DAs around the country in Los Angeles and New York and other places, specifically with Bragg. The Soros Foundation gave $1 million to a political action committee that supported Bragg. And as a matter of fact, George Soros's family gave $1 million, or excuse me, less than $1 million, but quite a bit of money to Alvin Bragg himself. So, look, this has become extremely political. And here's the problem, Efrem. There's some prosecutors and lawyers that have written books about this. What prosecutors love to do is play a game of, could you indict Mother Teresa? In essence, they go around and they say, how could we indict Mother Teresa? And guess what? They find a way to indict Mother Teresa. In other words, the point is, if prosecutors are looking for some sort of crime anywhere, everywhere, Efrem, you've committed a crime, I've committed a crime, Mother Teresa's committed a crime. There's felonies and misdemeanors everywhere. Prosecutors love to do this, and that will be the road going forward after what happened on April 4th, 2023.
All right, our CBN News chief political analyst, David Brody, thank you so much. Coming up, we're going to have the results from two important elections yesterday, including the mayor's race in Chicago. Those stories when we come back. Stay with us.
Your news channel, your shows, the stories you care about. Anytime you want, anywhere you want. Download the CBN News app today.
In the widely watched mayor's race in Chicago, progressive candidate Brendan Johnson won a very close race over his moderate opponent, Paul Vallas. Johnson, a Cook County commissioner, was endorsed by the Chicago Teachers Union. His win is seen as a major victory for the Democratic Party's progressive wing as the heavily blue city grapples with high crime and financial challenges. And in Wisconsin, a Milwaukee judge backed by Democrats won the high-stakes Supreme Court race. Janet Protasiewicz, with a decisive victory, won, giving liberals majority control of the court for at least the next 2 years, with the fate of the state's abortion ban on the line. The state election could also have national implications, possibly dealing with the state's election maps. Still ahead, a new film based on one of the most famous and important stories in the Bible, Abraham, offering to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. We're going to have a Studio 5 look at his only son when we come back. Stay with us. In the biblical story of Abraham, God commands him to sacrifice his son. He finds his faith tested during the 3-day journey to the mountain of Moriah. It is a familiar story as believers prepare to celebrate God doing just that for us, sacrificing his only son to restore us to a right-standing relationship with him. Abraham's story is the perfect fit for Angel Studios' first theatrical release, His Only Son. It's in theaters right now.
Abraham, Lord, take now your son and go to the land of Moriah, and there offer him.
I sit here with you guys are behind The Chosen, and we're talking about Abraham. Is the Bible that interesting?
The Bible is that interesting.
The Lord came to me last night.
What?
He says we are to go to Moriah, you and I, and make a sacrifice to him there.
Abraham's is particularly interesting, and filmmakers have been unwilling to hit Abraham because they consider it a problematic story. It's this story of a father being asked to sacrifice his son. And David Helling just courageously just goes right at it. He just dives right into everything from the situation of the sacrifice to the family dynamics. The whole entire thing unfolds. And then he built something that's beautiful, deep, and meditative.
All this commotion, so early. Abraham.
What is it that drew you in?
It's a beautiful journey of someone who has a lot of doubts, and just watching the love of her life go through this constant, volatile, emotional state, and giving into this idea that we are all part of a bigger journey, and then believing in that, and then committing to that.
Isaac and I will go alone.
Why, Isaac?
Because the Lord commands it.
Make sure no harm comes to our son.
Where did you go to dive in to understand her?
I feel like what was wonderful about this was that I had someone like David to guide me through not just the scripture part of it, which he refers to as the bones of it, but also the nuances of the character.
Since we first entered this land decades ago, I have seen the bonds of protection the living God has placed around you. He has promised to make of me a great name, a great nation.
We haven't even a son.
We will.
How long have we tried?
Why is the Lord having you trek all this way for a sacrifice?
How do you prepare and put flesh on the bones for this story?
You always want to enter in and understand the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, of knowledge, and of understanding. So you enter in prayerfully, then you study, and then you begin to see where else in Scripture is pointing to this account of Abraham's life, and what is this account pointing to. Then you build onto that.
The Lord has set us on this path. He will guide us.
How do you become Abraham?
All my concern was like to make Abraham be human, because I feel that like regardless if it's like 2,000 years ago or now, or like in 2,000 years, like everyone who watches this movie can relate.
I will not stand in your way.
You're not standing in the way. You're standing by my side.
Having Nicholas be such a generous and gifted actor allowed me to just let loose and explore different parts, different corners, and get really, really deep.
You're my wife. We must cling to our faith.
What made you say yes to playing Abraham? What happened?
Mainly what made me say yes was the audition scene. When I read it, I was like so emotional reading it. I was like tearing up while reading the lines. So I said, yes, I definitely want to do this.
David, how did you know this was your Abraham?
Looked at 1,700 different applicants. No one fit the bill, so I immediately started praying. Found this guy. It was exactly like I pictured it whenever I wrote the script.
This road belongs to Abimelech, king of Palestine.
I know who owns this road. I have given your king plenty of tributes.
What is your name, old man?
Abraham.
Chart the course of his only son for me.
We put it in front of the Angel Guild. The Angel Guild is a group of 90,000+ angel investors who are part of this group, this community whose mission is to find the stories and greenlight the stories that amplify light in the world. And it passes one of the highest marks we've ever seen. Just watching it, you realize like this isn't a movie that it shouldn't be on a laptop. It shouldn't be on a phone. It needs you to disconnect and surrender your devices, surrender your distractions, and have a one-on-one experience with Abraham.
Why go all this way? Go through all this effort?
He has us do this in remembrance that death is the penalty for sin.
This movie is so strong as a story that it has muscled its way up to 2,000 theaters, even in spite of the fact that all these gigantic blockbusters are all around it.
Is anything too difficult for the Lord?
Our bet as Angel Studios is that audiences are sick of big and loud right now, and for Holy Week, they want to tone it down, and they want to have a deep experience.
The Lord chose that man out from the wicked, that hope may endure. Take me!
Again, his only son is in theaters right now, and its creators, Angel Studios, is the same house behind the hit series, The Chosen. We'll have more on tonight on Studio 5. Plus, Roma Downey's LifeWorks company is releasing a new film based on the real-life miracle story of a passenger who was forced to land a plane after the pilot dies upon takeoff. And PureFlix has a film that challenges faith on the baseball field. We're going to have a look at running the bases. You can catch an all-new edition of Studio 5 on the CBN News Channel tonight at 8:30 Eastern. You can also download the CBN News app or watch it on YouTube. Coming up, a very special visit with a very special woman who has a very special faith in Jesus Christ. What a smile. We'll be back with that story right after this.
Download the CBN News app, 24/7 news from a Christian perspective at home or on the road. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Set daily prayer goals and pray for news stories. Read the most important news and watch CBN News Channel live. CBN News, because truth matters. Go to cbnnewsapp.com to get the app today.
And finally, this half hour, my absolute favorite story of all time. I want to take a moment to celebrate a woman who means the world to me. My grandmother, who is 104 years old, and she turns 105 years old this summer. That means she was born in 1918. In preparation for her grand birthday celebration, I traveled back home to Coosawhatchee, South Carolina, to snap a few family photos with a woman we affectionately call Queen Bee. And I thought I'd share some of that journey with you in this personal letter to my grandma.
Jesus on 3.
Beatrice Bee Fields Graham, Grandma. In case you didn't know, you are my hero. And as we count down to August 29th and you turning 105 years young, I want you to know I love you. Your smile, your heart, and your warm hands. There is no me without you. And your living example of love. Love of self, love of family, and most importantly, love of a Heavenly Father. You gave me your Jesus when I was just a child. And as an adult, you showed me how he could be and is my Jesus today. Looking back over more than 100 years, you married the love of your life in my grandfather, Henry Graham. You gave birth to 1 son and 7 daughters. 5 of these great women, my mom included, joined me for this sweet journey to say, we love you. Again, I say, you are my hero, and everything I want to be Graham, Grandma. After all these years, you are still the greatest part of me.
Time now for your Wednesday word. And with that tribute to my grandmother, I want to share some words of wisdom she gave me many years ago. You know me as Efrem, but she knows me as Kiki, a nickname she and my grandfather gave me while I was a baby and living with them in the starting years of my life. When she'd see me frozen, stressed, and worried about a mistake I made or something bad I did, she'd say, Kiki, what done, meaning what's happened has happened, and we can't change our past, but we can fix our eyes on a God who forgives and who gives us a hope and a future. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to remind you, you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News channel at any time or online at cbnnews.com. We would love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We certainly would love to hear from you. Hope you'll join us right back here, same time come Monday. Have yourself a fabulous Friday and a wonderful weekend. Goodbye, everybody, and God bless.